Good evening and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I'm Bryson Carver, and I've got news. Everybody got paid this week. That's what we're going to theme the show around. A lot of stuff happened, not just regarding contracts. I'll get into Justin Herbert in just a moment. Jaylen Brown, who everybody and their mama flipped out over that one. How could you give Jaylen Brown 5 years, $300 million? Well, A, the market, and B, well, something else I'll get to a little later in the show. Saquon Barkley ending his holdout pretty early with the New York Giants, 1 year, $11 million. He'll obviously be a free agent next spring. We'll see what happens in terms of that with his future with the franchise. But he's a New York Giant this year. That's the latest we've got. I'll get to that later in the show. Aaron Rodgers. We talk about guys getting paid. Well, Aaron Rodgers actually said, no, wait. I'm going to give you money, New York Jets. I'm going to give you $35 million, take a $35 million pay cut on his current deal with the Jets and stay there long term. I got more on that later on today's show. And also, Shohei Ohtani is going to be a Los Angeles Angel. We know for a fact the Angels have said so the rest of the season. And while he is, I'll get to this later, having a typical Shohei Ohtani freakish game today, freakish two games. They're playing a doubleheader in Detroit. This is a horrendous, beyond horrendous move by the Los Angeles Angels. I'll get to that. And at the end of the show today, going to debut a brand new segment for Carving It Up Live. That's what I'll leave it at, but a brand new segment at the end of today's show on Carving It Up Live. Looking forward to you seeing that. Before we get into our regularly scheduled show, again, a ton of stuff happened this week in the world of sports. The first thing I shouldn't say the first thing. One of the first things that happened, very unfortunate news, very scary news, is that Bronny James, the son of LeBron James, suffered cardiac arrest. I believe it was Monday morning at USC while in the middle of a workout. He was taken to the hospital. He was in the ICU for a little bit because the initial statement that came out that Shams put out on Twitter said that Bronny had been in the ICU. He's out of it now. And by the way, Shams just reported today that Bronny has been discharged. So great news there. Obviously, very, very scary. Somebody as healthy as Bronny James getting cardiac arrest is just it's shocking. It's scary. I can only imagine what LeBron and what Savannah and what Bryce and Zuri, the kids, we're thinking about and going through in that moment and through throughout this week. So prayers to Bronny, prayers for Bronny, rather. Hope he continues to get better. And listen, I won't speculate on his basketball future. That doesn't matter right now. What matters is him getting back to full health, getting back to a normal life for an 18, 19-year-old kid. So, God bless Bronny, praying for him, and hope he continues to get better. And also, second thing before we get to the Justin Herbert news, somebody who, I guess the biggest topic of discussion around him, this athlete I'm about to bring up, is when's he going to get this huge deal? Is he going to take a pay cut? And that's secondary talk right now, given what happened today to Joe Burrow with the Cincinnati Bengals. We have tape. They put this out there. He injured his calf today in practice. Training camp just began, but he injured his calf at Bengals training camp. Here's the video. So you're going to see him dropping back here. This happened just a couple hours ago, folks. And then you see him just out of nowhere, non-contact, hopping on his left leg. He looked like he already had a compression sleeve around his right calf. So there might have been something there to begin with. Again, we'll show the clip again. You see the medical personnel attending to him. You see one of his teammates going over to check on Joe Burrow. And again, this came in a couple hours ago. It's like, oh, shoot, like, is the Bengals season over before it even gets a chance to start? Obviously, we know that they are one of the favorites to win the AFC, if not the entire to win the Super Bowl. Then Kansas City, San Francisco, Philadelphia, a number of other teams. You see Joe Burrow there getting medical attention. So two good news. One, just observational on my part, and the other just came in about a half hour ago from Jamar Chase. Obviously, Joe Burrow's number one go-to receiver, one of the best in the league, and obviously Burrow's college teammate at LSU. When I saw that video, the first thing I noticed was like, oh, crap, that's non-contact. That's not good. Like, anytime it's non-contact, you really hold your breath and you worry. And the first thing, maybe it's because I have like PTSD from, as a Warriors fan, from the Kevin Durant situation in 2019. Remember where he injured his calf? I say that in air quotes. against the Houston Rockets in Game 5 of the second round. And obviously we saw KD reached a heck of a lot lower than his calf. And the worst case scenario happened. He came back for Game 5 of the finals against the Raptors. Looked great for the first quarter. Came in 2 minutes later into the second. Ruptured his Achilles and did not play basketball for a year and a half. So what they always tell you about guys who or women who tear their Achilles, rupture their Achilles, whatever the case may be, is that when it goes, you know instantly, because it almost always feels like somebody kicked you. And the good news, again, we'll play this one more time of Joe Burrow. You'll see him, pump fake. He'll roll out. He never looks behind him. He never looks behind him to see what's going on, what's wrong. That's a good sign. And the second thing, more importantly, forget my observation, Jamar Chase, again, his teammate, in college and with the Cincinnati Bengals, Jamar Chase said to reporters that Joe Burrow gave him the quote-unquote look. Or I think he said he gave him a nod to basically show him, like, hey, everything's all right. So that's, again, it usually you can tell, especially if it's a serious injury, by the reaction of others around. Again, we don't have a ton of tape from Bengals training camp for when this injury happened, but it doesn't seem like people were, dropping their shoulders like, oh my God, our season's over, our quarterback's down. It doesn't seem like it's that type of vibe around the Bengals right now, which hopefully that is, the best case scenario does come to fruition. And we certainly wish Joe Burrow the very best in whatever the diagnosis is, which we'll probably find out pretty soon. All Zach Taylor said is it is a calf injury, and so we just have to wait and see. But for Cincinnati, if you're a Bengals fan, you're like holding your breath big time. You're like, this is a year, again, opportunity to compete for a Super Bowl, and that kind of just flashed before your eyes right there. So certainly we wish the best for Joe Burrow, and we'll see if he's ready to go pretty soon. Again, I just got another update that Bronny James has been discharged. So great news there. So now we transition to our regularly scheduled programming. Again, this has been, I know training camp just started, but this has been as eventful a last full week of July that I can remember in terms of sports news across NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, heck, college football. I got Jim Harbaugh suspended. We just got the news literally just a second ago that Colorado is going to leave the Pac-12 for the Big 12, where they obviously used to play. So, so Prime hasn't even coached a game yet, and he's already making an impact. So there you go. Justin Herbert got paid big time by the Los Angeles Chargers. Got paid a grand total of 5 years, $262 million, which now makes him the highest paid quarterback in the league and therefore the highest paid player in NFL history. Now, folks talk about, oh, he's one of the elite quarterbacks of the game. Listen, I just have to pat myself on the back a little bit, because in 2020, before Carving It Up was on YouTube, before it was Carving It Up Live, it was just an audio show at the time, right in the middle of COVID, when basically all we had to talk about at the time was the draft and The Last Dance. That was all we had during COVID. I still not quite sure how we did 4 months basically of shows until the NBA bubble and Major League Baseball came back in July of that year. That aside, there were 3 quarterbacks that everybody's talking about. Joe Burrow, who was the presumed number 1 overall pick, and I, stupidly was not that high on. Tua, who I really liked, but there was concerns with him from an injury standpoint, and Justin Herbert, who for some odd reason wasn't as highly touted as a Tua or as a Burrow. I'm sitting back and looking at this guy. I'm like, okay, he's mobile. He's accurate. He's got a massive arm. He's got good leadership qualities. He's smart. He's got all the physical capabilities. He's 6'6". Like, what is not to like? And he steps in year 1 with the Chargers. Obviously, we remember the Tyrod Taylor when he had the punctured lung by the team doctor in week 2. They throw Justin Herbert out there. They let him know an hour before his first ever NFL start, hey, you're starting today against the defending champion Chiefs. And he plays great, and he hasn't really looked back since. If you look at Justin Herbert's first 3 years of his career, from a historical standpoint, it has been remarkable. Again, here's the graphic for the podcast audience. I'll read it off. Over 14,000 passing yards. That's first all-time for a quarterback in his first 3 seasons. Again, this is all-time rankings for quarterback in his first 3 years. 94 passing touchdowns, second all-time in the first 3 years. 102 total touchdowns. That's first all-time, most all-time in NFL history for a quarterback in his first 3 years. And 22 300-plus yard passing games. That is first all-time, you guessed it, for a quarterback in his first 3 years. Safe to say the production has been there and then some for Justin Herbert. He's had a start to his career similar to that of Andrew Luck. Like, that's really the only parallel that we really have to this kind of start by a young player, which Justin Herbert obviously is. I think what bothers me the most about because anytime a quarterback gets signed to a long-term deal, it's always, he's got to win the Super Bowl. Well, what's around him? You say, well, Justin Herbert's got one of the best supporting cast in the NFL. He's got some of the best, if not maybe the best receiving core in the NFL. It's up there with Cincinnati's, no question about it. Austin Eckler, there's a little bit of a contract dispute going on. They're not real sure how that's going to be resolved or if it's going to be resolved, but he's one of the best two-way backs in the NFL, up there with Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara and company. He's got a tremendous offensive line with his left tackle, Rashawn Slater, coming back from injury this season. And defensively, you got Khalil Mack, you got Joey Bosa, who was just ranked in the top 70 players in the NFL. You got Derwin James, who's one of the best safeties. Great defense, right? Heck, it looks like they've even got the special teams potentially figured out. Problem is, Justin Herbert has a below-average head coach in Brandon Staley. This is a guy who, throughout his history as the Chargers head coach, which has only been 2 years, but year one, 2021, I kind of like the Staley hiring. I'm like, sure, he's a defensive coach. Maybe he can't connect to Justin Herbert the way like a Sean Payton could or an Andy Reid could. He's good young head coach. Let's see what he's got. And the Chargers put themselves in position in week 18 to make the playoffs. Herbert has a better second year than rookie years. You would hope for a young quarterback to improve off of your first year in the NFL. Get to that game with the Las Vegas Raiders on the road. Certainly they have the better roster. And with all due respect to Derek Carr, love Carr, they've got the better quarterback, you would hope. Go to overtime. And if you remember, the winner of that game between the Chargers and Raiders got to the playoffs. But if they had tied, if the game ended in a tie, both teams would have gotten in. And we got to within under a minute. Nobody could really break the ice. Remember, Herbert in that fourth quarter had some massive fourth down conversions. He threw a touchdown to tie the game on the last play of regulation. It was an unbelievable football game. Under a minute to go, the Raiders are going to run the clock out. They are content. Hey, if we tie, we're going to the playoffs. Who cares? We're going in either way, or we're getting in either way, rather. And here comes Brandon Staley. He calls timeout. And the Raiders are like, what? Josh Jacobs and Derek Carr were like, okay, let's go and try and win it here. If they're going to give us free time, but it's a win-win situation. If we get in field goal range and he misses, okay, who cares? We're still going to the playoffs. If he makes it, we knock our rival out of the playoffs. And as we all know, they got in the field goal range, and the Chargers season came to an end short of a playoff appearance. And then last year, they got to the playoffs, and they led 27-0 over the Jacksonville Jaguars, in part aided by Trevor Lawrence throwing 4 picks. In the second half, the Jaguars scored every time they touched the football. Considering the fact, too, part of what helped Jacksonville come back is the Chargers, Brandon Staley and the former offensive coordinator, you're sitting back, you're thinking, you can kind of play the clock more than you're playing the Jaguars, and they pretty much abandoned the running game entirely. So they blow a 27-0 lead. They retain Staley, and even better, they fire their offensive coordinator and replace him with Kellen Moore. You could say, hey, Kellen Moore's had some of the best offenses in the NFL in Dallas. Well, he does have Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb and great offensive line and Tony Pollard and a great defense to back him up and get turnovers. You would think that Dak would continue to get better and better under that offensive coordinator, and he kind of hit his ceiling in year 7. Now, Herbert's more talented than Dak. There's no question about that. He has a much better arm. He's a much bigger athlete. He's proven to be more durable than Dak Prescott. But in a division where you got the best offensive coach in the NFL, Andy Reid, a top 5 offensive coach in Sean Payton now in Denver, Raiders were a mess. Put them aside. Are we looking at a third-place finish for the Los Angeles Chargers this season? Limitations at offensive coordinator given, and you'll see, Chargers fans, you'll see this, or what Chargers fans there are out there. I don't think I've ever seen a coach that is an offensive coordinator that is more married to curl routes than Kellen Moore is. Never seen anything like it. You'll learn that, Justin Herbert. You'll learn that, Chargers fans. So yes, they'll be talented. Yes, they will be among one of the more exciting teams in the NFL. You're going to have to turn on a Chargers game because something wild is going to happen. That's what we do know. Justin Herbert's going to make some ridiculous throws, put them in position to win, but be it a coaching decision, be it an inability to get a stop late defensively, be it the some play calling issues with not running the ball when you're up big, whatever the case may be, the Chargers will find a way to screw it up. I've called them Cowboys West for years. Like that's the Cowboys always find a way to lose the biggest games. Same with the Chargers. They invent new ways to lose big games. So props to Justin Herbert. I don't think we've given him quite enough credit for what he's had to carry in Los Angeles. Yes, the receivers are great, but his rookie year, when he had, it sucks for Herbert. Rookie year, I thought the coach was fine. I thought the head coach was fine. I did not think they should have moved on from Anthony Lynn. I think he did a good job in LA. The offensive line was horrendous. They upgrade the offensive line. Now it's average to above average, but they move on from Anthony Lynn for Brandon Staley. I don't know. I just have major questions regarding the Chargers. Forget in terms of championship contention. The question is whether or not can they make the playoffs. I think it's a fair question to ask. Again, when you talk about, we talk, and I'm about to get to Jaylen Brown in just a second, about these quarterbacks, about whether or not we should pay them or not, or these organizations should pay them or not. Don't forget, it's the old analogy I use and think about when it comes to your value, is that, what's the organization without you? And the fact of the matter is the Chargers were a 5-11 football team with an old Phillip Rivers before Justin Herbert got there, with that same roster, with the coach that got them to the playoffs in 2018, almost got him in 2017. Again, I talked about I talked about on Monday in regards to running backs, and should running backs get paid, and is there collusion against running backs? Going to talk about Saquon Barkley later in the show. There has to be some level of objectivity in terms of the importance of running backs in 2023 and the importance of quarterbacks in 2023, and it's night and day. 30 years ago, no. 90s, you had to have a great running back. Ask the Dallas Cowboys with Emmitt Smith. Ask the Buffalo Bills with Thurman Thomas. Ask the Denver Broncos with Terrell Davis. You had to have an elite running back to get into championship contention, regardless of quarterback play. And those teams, they had Jim Kelly, Hall of Famer, Troy Aikman, Hall of Famer, John Elway, top 5 quarterback ever. But those running games pushed them over the top, but due to rule changes, due to some of the new offenses that have come into the NFL, due to just the sheer talent of guys like a Justin Herbert who have come into the league over the past half decade, the game's changed. Philosophies have changed. And so, listen, I tweeted immediately when this news broke, or put it on Instagram stories at least. When this news broke, worth every penny. Chargers will get the absolute best out of Herbert. The question is, will the Chargers get the best out of the Chargers? My buddy Ryan Flowers, Clutch Sports Talk here on the Grid, always says the Chargers going to be the Chargers. Somehow, some way, you hear Stephen A. talk about the Cowboys a lot. You could almost apply that exact same logic to the Chargers. What can go wrong will probably go wrong. Rooting for Justin Herbert, but even the best quarterbacks, even the most talented quarterbacks, which he is, there's only so much that they can carry on their back, especially in that conference. So today, I do not see the Chargers as a playoff team. All right. Again, today's show, we're theming it the Everybody Got Paid show. Saquon Barkley got a deal. Jaylen Brown got a massive deal. Justin Herbert got a big deal. Aaron Rodgers took a pay cut, but we're going to talk about his contract and his fit with the New York Jets in a couple of segments. Like that's kind of the theme for Carving Up Live today. Everybody Got Paid show. So, okay, we just got news on Jalen Ramsey. This is coming in just now from Adam Schefter and from Jalen Ramsey himself, cornerback of the Miami Dolphins, obviously was traded this offseason, that Dolphins 6-time Pro Bowler Jalen Ramsey will undergo knee surgery and is expected to miss the start of the regular season with the injury that he suffered during today's practice, per league sources. Ramsey's ACL is intact, though, which is a positive. Okay, so we know for a fact he's gone for the start of the regular season. Jalen Ramsey actually just tweeted, quote, "I'll be back on that field stronger than ever in due time. This is so minor for God's child. I trust fully and know that he got me. I'm forever grateful to worship his name. I know my brother's going to hold it down until I'm back, though. Appreciate the love and support. Time to get right." So Jalen Ramsey is out for, all they're saying is the start of the regular season, but the good news is his ACL is intact. This is not season ending. He obviously got hurt earlier today during practice. So we've had a lot of guys being carted off the field. I think it was Donovan Wilson for the Dallas Cowboys was carted off. Doesn't look like he's going to miss any time. There was somebody else I'm forgetting. For Detroit, who's going to be in the NFC Championship game. I've told you that numerous times. Detroit is going to be in the NFC title game. It was Chauncey Gardner-Johnson who was carted off during practice. So we've had a lot of injuries early in training camp, which just sucks. I mean, the preseason hasn't even started yet. So wishing the best for these guys who've gotten hurt, and hopefully there's no more injuries beyond this. And certainly injuries that are severe enough for guys to be carted off the field. So thus far, of all these instances, again, we're waiting on the news with Joe Burrow. Could happen during today's show. Probably will happen by the time tomorrow's show starts. But we're absolutely wishing the best with him. What we have thus far, it doesn't sound season-ending, which is great. But the severity and the diagnosis is TBD, so we'll see. But like I said, today's show, we got NFL news. We got NBA news, which we're about to get into in just a second. We got Major League Baseball's Shohei Ohtani, who, aside from the obvious and the fact that the Angels aren't going to trade him, is having a stupid day. That's Shohei Ohtani day. They say showtime for a reason. First game of today's doubleheader in Detroit goes 9 innings and throws a one-hitter, 111 pitches. And the second game of the doubleheader, hits 2 home runs. Like, that's it. If I had to describe Shohei Ohtani to somebody, it'd be today. Today is a perfect example of how great is he. Well, look at July 27th, 2023, and then come back to me and tell me how good Shohei Ohtani is. I've called him an alien numerous times. We've never, ever seen anything like him, ever. And then I'll get into, obviously, Saquon later in the show, and then a brand new segment that I'm going to introduce to Carving It Up Live at the end of the show. Jaylen Brown got paid, though. He got paid. 5 years, $303 million for Jaylen Brown, who has proven himself to be one of the better number 2 stars in the NFL. Second co-stars to superstars, which I think Jason Tatum has proven himself to be. 5 years, $303 million. And when the news broke the other day, it was, how could you pay Jaylen Brown? How could you make Jaylen Brown the first $300 million man in the NBA, and thus the highest paid player in NBA history? We do it more often in the NFL with quarterbacks, but we did the same thing 7 years ago with Mike Conley. Remember when Mike Conley got that deal, paid him $150 million? Be like, oh my God, how could you pay? And the market kind of evened itself out. And Mike Conley, while Memphis and then eventually Utah was paying him more than they probably wanted to, it wasn't not Utah, it was just Memphis. Memphis was paying more than they wanted to. It wasn't a devastating franchise handicapping type of deal, right? Jaylen Brown gets $300 million. First of all, again, the market dictates that. And the whole, I'll just let him play this year and then let's let him walk. Rebuild around Tatum. Really? Right, Jason Tatum, the guy who is age 25, I believe. 25, 26 years old. Top 7 player in the NBA. 30-point per game guy. Just waste a year. I mean, Tatum's not in his prime yet, but waste a year of championship contention with the Boston Celtics. That's a great idea. And while I do believe Boston's off-season decisions have been curious at best, they trade for Porzingis, which I'm like, okay, that's a scorer. It's a good wing player, but it's still not a point guard. Does he fit the locker room? Does he stay healthy? You trade Marcus Smart, who's a great defensive player, but is more of an off guard. You put him in Memphis, and you don't really. I didn't really get that deal at all. Then you do a sign and trade with Grant Williams and get second-round picks in return. Boston's had an on-off season. The only thing I've agreed with the Celtics doing was bringing in Sam Cassell to be the assistant head coach to Joe Mazzulla, who I've had numerous concerns about as a head coach. And it's not. We'll have a Joe Mazzulla conversation another day whenever the season starts and folks start calling for the man's job for Sam Cassell to be the head guy. Point being, this is about Jaylen Brown. I think we often don't give the proper context to not just when guys get paid, but the amount of success that certain teams have. Sometimes we base our we don't always base our expectations off of reality or what has been reality to this point. Since Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown became a duo, which was Tatum's rookie year, 2017, 2018. Since the 2018 playoffs, we're looking at the Eastern Conference. I want you to take a quick little look here at the success that certain teams have had in that span. So, of these teams, Celtics, Sixers, Bucks, Raptors, Heat, Hawks, Cavs. The Celtics have been to more conference finals than any of them. Only Miami has rivaled them in that department with 3 conference finals appearances. Again, this is in the Tatum-Brown era. That's 4 conference finals appearances. Miami is second with 3. NBA finals appearances. Now, Miami surpasses Boston in that regard. They've been to 2, but only Milwaukee has been to another 1, and Toronto and Cleveland. That was the LeBron year. That almost shouldn't even count because LeBron, that team had no business being the finals. LeBron was just having the greatest stretch of basketball of his career. Now we get to NBA titles. Boston doesn't have any, but only Milwaukee and Toronto do. And of course, we all know Kawhi left Toronto to go to the Clippers to go the opposite conference after that year. Simply put, the Celtics with Tatum and Brown have been one of the most successful teams in the conference. It's kind of the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It ain't broke in Boston between those two. Now, does Boston need a point guard? You better believe it. Could they use some more natural defenders? Yeah, some more wing presence, again, on the defensive side of the floor? Sure. But being that folks talk about the issue as being Tatum and Brown, again, I've got on my phone the top 30 players, in my mind, in the NBA. So I've got Jokic, Steph, Giannis as the top 3. Top 30 players. I've got Karl-Anthony Towns at 30. I looked at this list and was specifically focusing on number 2 options on their team. Okay? The only guys I have above Jaylen Brown, Devin Booker, Anthony Davis, and Kyrie Irving. Now, second thought, I'm probably considering switching Kyrie and Jaylen Brown, but Kyrie is a wizard with the basketball in his hands, so I'm not going to I have numerous issues with Kyrie's leadership abilities, and the organizations would sign him off and go into the deep end with Kyrie as opposed to succeeding. But Kyrie's a special talent, so I put him just 1 spot above Jaylen Brown on my list. I think Jaylen Brown's the 19th best player in the NBA. As these next 5 years go on, again, this contract, Jaylen Brown's going to be 27 when the season starts, right around the time the season starts this October. By the time this contract runs out, he'll be in his early 30s. So like right in the middle of his prime, and then we'll see, down the road, does Boston keep him long-term? Will they have traded him in the middle of his contract? I don't know. But at this point, I've heard folks say, hey, why don't you just trade Jaylen Brown for Damian Lillard? Why? Because Jaylen Brown's not the only guy you're going to have to give up. You're probably going to have to give up an Al Horford, great backup center to Robert Williams. Maybe you would have to give up Robert Williams. Maybe a Malcolm Brogdon, who's a good backup point guard off the bench. Maybe a Derek White. Any of these pieces you would have had to give up for a guy the caliber of Damian Lillard, who would only be in his prime for the next 2 to 3 years and then be done, essentially. And now you've lost all your assets. You probably, again, we'll see what the success would have been between Tatum and Lillard. But are you guaranteed to win a title with those two? Folks got to remember, in that NBA Finals against Golden State, Jaylen Brown was the guy. When Boston was up 2-1, it was Jaylen Brown, not Jason Tatum, who was the Vegas favorite to get Finals MVP. This guy plays his biggest and the biggest stage. Now, to me, the biggest issue with Brown from a skill standpoint, the guy has got to work on his handles. I've never seen a guy with freaking like Dove soap on his hands when he dribbles the basketball. It's unbelievable. He's got to improve that as a primary ball handler. But he's not really a league guard, so that's not his game, but he needs to improve in that regard. Tatum and Brown have been one of the most successful duos in the NBA for a very long time. And aside from Milwaukee and Toronto, since those two became a duo, nobody else in the Eastern Conference has won a title. And we know Toronto is in rebuild mode. Kawhi's long gone. In Milwaukee, we'll see what happens. You got a new coach. Giannis coming back better than ever. Milwaukee's going to be around for a while. But Philadelphia, Boston owns Philadelphia. So you don't have to worry about them. You think about a team like the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're good. Got to the playoffs. Donovan Mitchell had an excellent year. But they're not challenging Boston for the Eastern Conference. Sometimes, again, maybe it's just it's Celtics pride. Maybe it's the whole narratives are very strong, because I remember going into that Game 7 when Boston came back from a 3-0 deficit. I said, look, I don't know if Boston's going to win this game or not. I picked Miami to win that game. I don't know. I said I didn't know if Boston was going to win or not. I knew one thing for sure: the home crowd or the home court advantage would have nothing to do with it. Boston's not a good home team, but because the crowd is loud, because of the history in Boston with the Russells and the Larry Birds and the Paul Pierces of the world, and that being such a great home court advantage, we just put that into the present time. That hasn't necessarily been the case. So for Jason Tatum, for Jaylen Brown, this is great. This is great news. Now they get to continue to build around those two. Again, they have been to an NBA Finals, which is a lot better than most duos in the NBA can say. I mean, since current duos that are still together that have had more success than Tatum and Brown, off the top of my head, Steph and Clay, you got to include Draymond on that, so that's more of a trio. Steph and Clay and Draymond, LeBron and AD, Giannis and Middleton, although I think it's been more Giannis Holiday in recent years, and then Jokic and Murray. That's it. Duos, or in the case of Golden State, trios that are still together, that's it. That have had more success, that are still together at least, that have had more success than Tatum and Brown. Boston's issue isn't those two. Folks forget that. They don't have a point guard, and I have major questions at head coach. They address those. Okay, Boston's probably the best team in the Eastern Conference, pending the Damian Lillard trade to Miami, because we all know that's going to happen. It's just a matter of not if, but when. We'll see. But I listen, is it ideal to give the 19th best player in the NBA $300 million? In the last year of his contract, making $69 million? Not really. But I saw today that Jokic, pretty soon, in a few years, is going to be eligible for a $400 million contract. And guess what? Now Jokic is on a different level than Brown. It'll be worth every penny. Contracts, salary cap, league revenue, it's only going up, man. You got to pay your stars. If you let Jaylen Brown walk, then what? It's not like Boston is an attractive free agent destination for numerous reasons. It's a cold city. It's a city that has a questionable history, let's be honest, with race. It's not as attractive as LA. Where's Golden State? Where's Atlanta? Where's Miami? Where's Dallas? Where's Phoenix these days? Do you get a star in Boston? You better keep him, because you're not going to duplicate him. Okay. We just got news on Joe Burrow. And this is the best case scenario. This is from Diana Rossini. Quote, Bengals sources have confirmed what head coach Zach Taylor shared after practice. Quarterback Joe Burrow has a strained calf. This is the absolute best case scenario. Like the first thing, when I saw that video, I put it on social media. It was, oh crap, it's a non-contact injury. Like that is the biggest red flag you can think of for a guy who injures who has a lower body injury. So looks like Joe's going to be fine. We'll see how long he's out. But again, it's late July now. You would think he's going to be ready for the start of the regular season. I think they go to Cleveland in week 1. He should be ready to go. So listen, I may be a new Steelers fan, but you never want to see some of the best players in the league go down. Never. So very, very, very exciting news and good news regarding Joe Burrow and his health. So he's going to be ready to go for the long run. So, but again, like folks got to realize, again, the market changes, revenue goes up in the NBA, salary caps change. You got to keep your stars. You got to. What would have been their other option? Trade for Dame. He's great for 2 years. Then what? Got a much better chance winning long-term, winning numerous championships, which I thought was the Boston Celtics way with Tatum and Brown. It's going to be fun. This NBA season could be a doozy. I'm very, very excited. Not as excited as I am for the NFL season coming up, but this NBA season can be a doozy, especially with this in-season tournament. It's starting to grow on me a little bit. Okay, Back to the NFL. We talked about two guys, one NFL player in Justin Herbert and one NBA player in Jaylen Brown. Got the bag. Not what Mbappe would have got in France. He turned down that deal over $700 million. But be that as it may, it's a lot of lettuce. But there's a guy in New York, plays for the Jets, gave up a lot of that lettuce. So Aaron Rodgers, new quarterback, obviously the New York Jets, was slated. He still had 2 years, $110 million on his contract left. And he decided to give up $35 million of that. So he's going to make it these next 2 years, he's going to make $75 million. This, again, my evolution on my belief about what the New York Jets are going to do this season is night and day from when the trade was unofficially made in March, officially made in April, and to now. And I talked about this on Monday's show. I'm seeing nothing, and it's shocking to me, given what I am so used to, and I'm sure you are so used to with Aaron Rodgers, is this positive, happy-go-lucky, great with the media, going out in the city with teammates and going to Taylor Swift concerts and going to the Tony Awards and working out with guys, showing up for off-season training activities, being present and being locked in to training camp. Even with the defensive guys, he thought Sauce Gardner gave him the big number 8 chain. He seems to have really endeared himself to that locker room, which is very not Aaron Rodgers, at least from what we know him to be in Green Bay. And so now we see yet another step in what you would think as a Jets fan is the right direction in terms of his commitment to the franchise in taking a listen, Aaron may be rich. $35 million is $35 million. That's a lot of money. He said, no, here you go. We know the Jets are meeting with Dalvin Cook. I would not be against them maybe going out and trading for an offensive lineman. Atlanta's got a lot of those. A lot of good ones in Atlanta. But the bottom line is that Aaron is committed to winning. He's saying, you know what? I made my money. Yeah, I've got a ring, but most of the greatest, the Marino aside, most of the greatest quarterbacks ever, the guys that we think of on quarterback Mount Rushmore, have 2 rings. Brady has 7, obviously. Peyton Manning. Joe Montana has 4. Terry Bradshaw has 4. Troy Aikman has 3. John Elway has 2. Patrick Mahomes has 2. Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to be left out of that club. There's no shame in retiring with 1 Super Bowl. There's definitely no shame in retiring with 4 MVPs. But given his recent playoff history, you think it wouldn't feel a certain type of special if Aaron Rodgers got ring number 2, absent Green Bay? You ask Tom Brady. You think number 7 felt special in Tampa or 6 in New England? I bet almost every dollar I got, he'd say 7 in Tampa Bay because it's success absent the team that folks say, hey, like that, the success, it was 50 Belichick, 50 Brady, 50%. We saw it was like, okay, no, it was like best case for Belichick, 85 Brady, 15 Belichick. And folks have been debating recently, is it Green Bay? Is it the Jets? Anyways, take a listen to what Aaron Rodgers was talking about regarding his contract, regarding his long-term future with the Jets, and regarding whether or not he wants to play deep into his 40s.
Yeah, definitely some of it is how much fun I'm having. It's all about the body, how the body feels. The team gave up significant pieces for it just to be a 1-year deal. I'm aware of that. I think there was an awareness of that. Now, again, anything can happen with my body or with the success we have this year. But I'm having a blast, so I don't really see this as a 1-year and done thing.
Did you see yourself, though, even a couple years ago, playing into your 40s? Like, was that a goal of yours?
Yeah, definitely. I think being the 40-year-old starter was a goal, just because that's kind of that's a big number. And to put yourself in that position means you got to really take care of yourself in the offseason. And so I've adjusted some things with that goal in mind. Obviously, Tom kind of set the standard playing to 45, I think, which is crazy. But less crazy when you're starting to get closer to that because you still love the game and you still want to be there doing it. And if you take care of yourself the right way, you put yourself in a position to at least entertain that thought.
something, and I talked about this on Monday, that I'm noticing more and more from Aaron Rodgers is we know him, especially the last few years. I think the best example of that is 2 years ago. I'm immunized. Remember that? That's when he was vaccinated against COVID-19. He said, I'm immunized. And we all assumed, oh, he's vaccinated. And we found out later on he was not. And there was a whole drama, situation with that. But Aaron, throughout his time, especially the last 5 years in Green Bay, has always been real slick. He throws in some hidden messages. He's very cryptic in his press conferences. That is the most straightforward, open, and completely honest and transparent that I have ever seen Aaron Rodgers at the podium. Ever. And I talked about this on Monday. Before this deal was signed, the deal was signed, the pay cut was, the new deal was signed, I guess it was 2 days ago. Yesterday. Yesterday with the New York Jets. But I talked about on Monday's show, I was telling you that if you read between the lines about what he was talking about in regards to his future with the New York Jets, he talked about how this is something he wants to do beyond this year. And he just sort of threw that in to the quote that he gave the media. But as I am you remember Keegan-Michael Key? Remember how he was Obama's anger translator? What was his name? Luther on Key and Peele. I miss Key and Peele. That was the best show ever. By the way, Aaron Rodgers was on Key and Peele, ironically, back in the day. Aaron. Although that's a different skit entirely. But remember when Keegan-Michael Key was Barack Obama, former President Obama's anger translator? I think I've become Aaron Rodgers' press conference translator. I may have stumbled onto something there. That, on Monday and last week, he's talking about, hey, this is something I'd like to do long term. I'm having a lot of fun. And then a few days later, Aaron Rodgers takes pay cut, and you saw that soundbite said he wants to play into his 40s. Deep into his 40s. You mentioned Tom Brady, which we heard years ago. Tom was obsessed with playing into his 40s. He talked about, I want to go to 40. And then once he got to 40, now I want to go to 45. You've heard Russell Wilson, I want to play into my 40s. Drew Brees said he wanted to play into his 40s. And now Aaron Rodgers coming to the table like, you know what? This Jets thing's kind of fun. This New York City thing, listen, Aaron is a kid from the Bay Area. He's from California. Grew up a Niners fan, but it's this opposite coast. But New York provides some of those same type of experiences away from football. He seemed to embrace that. He's embraced his teammates more than I think he ever did in Green Bay, especially his young teammates. I think, again, I talked about it Monday. Alan Lazard. Remember, Alan Lazard played with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay all those years. And, he's a New York Jet now. And he's talking about how Aaron is a lot more, he would know as well as anybody, Aaron's a lot more, he's showing guys a lot more grace. If they make a mistake, he's not going to cuss them out. He's not going to ghost them. He's like, remember that first game against the Minnesota Vikings, first play of the Packers season, he throws that deep ball to Christian Watson. It's going to be a wide open touchdown, and it goes right through the poor kid's hands, and he doesn't throw to him until like the third or fourth quarter. That's changed. He's not that same way anymore. He trusts Garrett Wilson. He trusts Alan Lazard from his time in Green Bay. He trusts Randall Cobb. He trusts some of his other weapons. I'm telling you, this is a Jets team. Again, we talk about all of the questions. There's questions just about it with just about every team in the NFL, even Kansas City. I mean, Kadarius Toney got hurt. They got Mahomes and Andy Reid, but every team to a certain degree has questions. Is it nuts to say the Jets have the least amount of all? New England. Ooh. Y'all seen Mac Jones at practice? Oof. He's not looking so good. I think you could play a quarterback, and I could play a quarterback better New England than Michael McCorkle Jones. New England has their questions. We heard Belichick's in the hot seat, for crying out loud. Buffalo said all off season, I do not believe in Buffalo this season. Given the way their season ended a year ago with the most unimpressive playoff win I've ever seen in my life in that wild card game against a Miami Dolphins team in cold weather with a third-string quarterback, a game that literally came down to the last 2 minutes, and then they get blown out on their home field in the snow against Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. Coming into this offseason, Leslie Frazier. Remember they lost Brian Dable, the offensive coordinator. We saw the effect that had on Josh Allen. He left to go to the New York Giants. Leslie Frazier, the defensive coordinator, did a tremendous job. He just steps away. It's like, where'd he go? Why'd Leslie go? I don't know. He just retired kind of out of the blue. So now, what are they going to do at defensive coordinator? They're going to put the head coach there. And we've seen throughout most of NFL history, at least recent NFL history, Andy Reid is one of the few exceptions to this rule, that when you put a head coach in charge of play calling duties, along with the usual responsibilities associated with being a head coach, it's not been all that successful. Look at Bill O'Brien. Of course, Bill O'Brien was the general manager. That's a bad example with the Houston Texans. But Josh McDaniels, hadn't worked so well in Vegas. It's not as easy as it might sound to other head coaches. So you worry about that in that regard from Sean McDermott defensively, even though he was a great defensive coordinator with the Carolina Panthers before he got the Bills job. Miami, they have their concerns. Yeah, we got a stacked roster, but Jalen Ramsey just went down, and we'll see whenever he comes back. And we really like our offensive line, our running game, our receiving core is as good as there is in the league. Is Tua going to be healthy? If he's healthy, is he going to be consistently good? Doesn't have to be great. Tua doesn't have to be Justin Herbert. Newsflash for those that, for reasons unknown to me last year, thought he was better than Justin Herbert. He's not. Aside from, I guess, accuracy, which is important, I don't think he's better at anything in terms of playing the quarterback position than Justin Herbert. So put that aside. But if he is, I don't know, if he's Derek Carr, yeah, the Dolphins can win a couple of playoff games. Who knows? I think it's the Jets, crazy enough, that have the least amount of concerns. Only concern I have, I guess, is head coach with Robert Saleh. But the thing is, we don't really know one way or the other, because his defense, again, he's a defensive guy. Defense has been great. The offense has been horrendous with Zach Wilson and Strevler and Joe Flacco and Mike White, who's now Tua's backup in Miami. Now he gets Aaron Rodgers with the offensive rookie of the year and Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. We'll see if he comes back. Dalvin Cook is a potential deal in the making. I don't know. It's looking awfully good for the Jets. I'm not saying they're going to go 17-0 or anything, but I'll do my NFL season predictions as I always do on, opening Thursday night, but it's starting to look really good. I'm starting to really slowly, right around the time the finals started, I talked about Aaron Rodgers, how I'm seeing this new Aaron. He just looks happier. He's smiling more. He's got a little bit of a tan. He seems just physically, he doesn't look as, the last few years, I don't know if it was the ayahuasca or whatever the case may be, he just didn't look right physically. He looks good now. He's enthusiastic about football. He's working with the young teammates. Like, this is a completely different Aaron Rodgers than what we're used to in years past, certainly the last few years with the Green Bay Packers. Let's see. Oh, by the way, speaking of the Jets, there's a little, I may talk about this tomorrow, a little spicy back and forth between Sean Payton, the new head coach of the Broncos, and Robert Saleh, the head coach of the Jets. So Sean Payton was doing an interview recently, and again, I'll talk more about this tomorrow, and he was saying that he was talking about how the Broncos coaching was just a mess. It was some of the worst coaching he's ever seen from Nathaniel Hackett, and that he's going to fix it, which I don't doubt, by the way. Sean Payton's a future Hall of Famer. Well, Nat Hackett is now the Jets offensive coordinator, of course, given his history with Aaron Rodgers being the former OC in Green Bay. And Robert Saleh hasn't taken too kind to that. Again, we'll talk more about that tomorrow, but Billy Turner, who's an offensive lineman for the Jets, he reposted that to his Instagram stories, that quote from Sean Payton. He said, quote, "Seems like someone started training camp and is trying to soften the blow after realizing what he's in for this season. Effing bum. Hashtag Bountygate. Hashtag childish." Dang, he went to Bountygate. Man, this is personal. The Jets, I think the Jets and Broncos do play. Is it week 5 that they play each other? I got to check that. Hold on. I wasn't expected to talk about that today as it was tomorrow. Let's see. The Jets and the Broncos play in week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that is in Denver. That was a 4:25 Eastern kickoff. I think that's the big game on CBS. So it'll be a Jim Nantz, Tony Romo game. So that'll be interesting. Listen, we need some bad blood in sports. This bad blood's great in sports. It's more prevalent in college than anything, but we need that in the NFL. Even though the Jets and Broncos don't really have that much, at least that I'm aware of a history with one another in terms of any kind of rivalry, this may be brewing and developing. I love it. Let's talk about the best player in the history of Major League Baseball, because that's what he is. We've never seen any player like Shohei Ohtani. I think that goes without saying. I didn't say greatest. Notice that. Greatest and best are two different things in my book. I think greatest, you involve moments. You involve influence in the game. I'm just talking about best. We're talking talent. We're talking accomplishments. And Shohei Ohtani is the best player that we've ever seen. He is two players, two great players compressed into one guy. And he's going to be a free agent this winter, as we all know. Probably the most sought-after free agent maybe in the history of Major League Baseball. He's going to get, in all likelihood, the biggest contract, rightfully so, by the way, in the history of Major League Baseball. And the Los Angeles Angels seem intent on trying to find a way to just barely sneak into the American League playoffs before getting blitzed by the Minnesota Twins or somebody. I don't know what they're playing. Or Houston, depending on how the bracket looks. They announced yesterday they're not going to be trading Shohei, which I talked about this whole Shohei trade market thing. Not trade market, of course there's a market, but this whole Shohei Ohtani trade story right before I went on break that Friday. And I said, look, if I'm the Angels, I'm like say, hey, Yankees, Mets, Dodgers, hey, here you go. Here's Shohei. You can have him and rebuild the organization that way. Because God knows the prospects he'll get. You'll get some big leaguers in return, no question about it. They decided to keep him. My question for the other teams was, if you trade for Shohei, are you 100% certain, not 99, are you 100% certain he is staying for the long run? Because you can't give up basically the whole farm system for a guy that's going to be there 3 months. 2 months, really. But the question was never with the Angels. The only, and even this is dicey, the only scenario I can see in which I'm like, okay, I get why the Angels are doing that. They're buyers at the deadline, not sellers. Is because they've gotten word from Shohei or his agent that they are staying. But A, I doubt it. B, even if they did, free agency hadn't started yet. There are going to be teams coming in with offers, enticing deals for Shohei that maybe the Angels can't provide. Again, it's all a matter of personal preference for Shohei because there's not that many blank check guys in sports. There's really not. Like, I think in the NFL, it's Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Aaron Donald, TJ Watt. Like I think that's about where the list ends. In Trent Williams as well. Major League Baseball, I don't even think Judge is in that group because Judge doesn't give you, obviously, the impact. Of course, he's not a pitcher, but he doesn't give the impact defensively as Shohei gives you on the mound. NBA, LeBron, not anymore. He's not a blank check guy. He's 38. I think Steph is, Giannis is, Jokic is. KD doesn't stay healthy enough. That's about it. I think it's Steph, Giannis, Jokic. I mean, Steph is 35 and is still in his prime. So, like, those are the only guys in the NBA that I could think of. And Major League Baseball is probably just Shohei. So every team in Major League Baseball can give him essentially whatever he wants. There's obviously no salary cap. And the team that gets him is in all likelihood going to be one of the more valuable teams. It's going to be the Dodgers, which I think he's going to end up with the Dodgers. The Yankees, the Angels, the Red Sox. Many of these teams have all the money in the world to give this guy. For him, it's going to be a matter of, does he like the more low-key environment, kind of like his teammate Mike Trout? Does he like the low-key environment more in LA with the Angels? Or does he like being on the big stage in Hollywood with the Dodgers or being in New York? Listen, it takes a different kind of dude to play in New York. I mean, that's a whole different animal. We see Aaron Rodgers is embracing it. Shohei's the type of dude that I think he would embrace it. We saw how he played in the World Baseball Classic. In the very few opportunities we've gotten to see him on primetime on the biggest stages, he's absolutely flourished. So I think he's made for that New York spotlight. Boston as well. There's a lot of expectations comes from playing at Fenway. So you have all those things, all those components coming into the picture. But the Angels they are, in this case, the Angels are the Portland Trailblazers of the NBA, obviously, on steroids. Remember, anytime I've talked about the Damian Lillard trade situation, it's like Portland is in the one of the most, among rebuilding teams, everybody wants to be Portland. They got some really good young players. They get drafted this young guard, Scoot Henderson, who's going to be really good, probably make some all-star games in the NBA. And they got the most coveted asset in all of basketball in Damian Lillard. And who knows the return that they're going to get. It's probably going to be pretty good. He's Damian Lillard. Look at the Angels. They got Mike Trout, who's injured. We understand he's had some health issues the last few years, but he's still Mike Trout. He's still fantastic. Still top 5 player in baseball. Got a solid farm system as is. And Lord only knows what you get from Shohei. And you're not going to run the risk. Hey, because I saw they acquired a starting pitcher. Good one, by the way. Hey, we're going to go after a playoff spot, which that in itself is kind of a coin flip. Again, they're in the 8th inning right now. Sorry, the 9th inning against the Tigers. They're up 8-4. They're probably going to win that baseball game. They just won the game earlier today. So they are, in all likelihood, when the day is over, they are going to be 3 games back of that last wild card spot currently held by the Toronto Blue Jays. They could get it. They're not, because the Red Sox could get it. Point is, they could get it. Then what? Yes, you'll have the best player in every series that you're in, but what about the rest of your roster? And there's a reason that the Angels are sitting just a hair above 500 right now. Without Shohei, they are the 4th best team in their division. Rangers obviously better. Astros, I still think are going to win the American League in 2023. And the Mariners are better. Why not? Why not move Shohei? You will get a king's ransom, and you finally get the opportunity, finally, to completely rebuild your organization, which has not been relevant for 20 years. And you squander it for what? A 2-month chase for the 6th seed, the last wild card spot? Why? I don't get it. I really genuinely don't get it. The only scenario in which I can see this where I'm like, okay, I understand that perspective is if they've gotten word from Shohei and or his agent that he's going to stay. And even that is a coin flip because free agency hasn't started yet. Negotiation hasn't started yet. Maybe there could be a hiccup, a gaffe, some bad blood brew between the owner, between the agent. A lot of things happen in negotiations. So we'll see, but I hate this move. Hate this move by the Angels. But they are the Angels, and there's a reason that there's been some ownership change or some ownership issues as of late. So I guess we can't be all that shocked. By the way, while we're on the topic of Major League Baseball, and again in 10 minutes I'll introduce a new segment to Carving It Up Live 10 minutes from now. Can we just take a moment to sit back and appreciate the fact that my Boston Red Sox, albeit in just a short 2-game series at home, just swept the best team in Major League Baseball, the Atlanta Braves. Yeah, we did that. One of the best, if not the best offensive baseball we held to a single run on Tuesday night in the rain-delayed game. And then last night, going to the bottom of the 6th, down 3-zip, can't really get much of anything going offensively. Get a homer from Rafael Devers, a homer from, I believe it was Jarren Duran. Justin Turner gets the RBI in the bottom of the 7th, I believe. And then my man Adam Duvall with the insurance run, the homer in the 8th to win the game 5-3. Kenley Jansen shut the door in the 9th. Best team in baseball went to Fenway. We took both games. I know a lot of Braves fans, so some of this is gloating and some of this just in the larger sense is just to let you know Boston's coming. I'm just still like Houston's going to win the American League, but they don't want to play the Red Sox. Frankly, nor does anybody. They're the best team in July, 4-game winning streak, game and a half out of a wild card spot. Oh, we can get a starting pitcher. I know there's been conversations as of late between the Red Sox and the Cardinals about acquiring the Cardinals' really good shortstop. I'll take him. We'll take him. Not saying we're going to win the World Series or anything, but I don't want to face the Red Sox in October. I can tell you that much. Yeah, well. Okay, Saquon Barkley. Let's talk about him. So that has been a big story that I went into deep detail on. Put the video on YouTube today. You could check it out on YouTube here on Carving It Up or on the Grid Network. And I put some clips on the social media as well, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, the whole bit, about running backs and what their market is in 2023. And again, I've said for a long time now, even before Monday, that I get running backs being frustrated. I really do. I truly get where they're coming from in terms of the frustration they're feeling, seeing, hey, quarterbacks getting paid, and receivers are really getting paid, and defensive linemen and offensive linemen and corners are getting big money. Linebackers are getting big money. Heck, kickers are getting decent contracts. Look what Justin Tucker's making. Why can't we get a slice of the pie? Well, because running the football has never been less important to winning in the NFL. As I gave the stat yesterday, or a few stats, 4 of the top 10 rushing teams in the NFL did not make the playoffs, including the team that had the worst record in the league, the Chicago Bears, who led the NFL in rushing. Yeah, running the football thing really helped them win those 3 games. And then 5 of the bottom 10 rushing teams in the NFL made the playoffs. So there was some Tampa Bay was in there. Now, Tampa Bay's in a bad division, but the Vikings were in there despite having Dalvin Cook. The Bengals were in there despite having Joe Mixon. The Chargers, despite having Austin Eckler. I think that was more of a coaching issue than anything. And who was the last team? Miami with Tua. Tua had a very good year, and they have incredible weapons. Not to mention the fact that, forget just making the playoffs, just in the context of trying to win a Super Bowl, for the last 4 Super Bowl champions, the highest that any of them have been ranked in running the football in the league was this past year. Kansas City was 20th. So running backs continue to beat the drum, and I genuinely hate it for them. Hate it for them. The one position I've talked about for years, it's the only unprotected position in the NFL. We protect quarterbacks, we protect receivers, offensive linemen, defensive linemen, kickers. We don't protect running backs. You can hit them however you want, and that's in a large part of the reason why their value has gone down. It's a big reason why they only usually get one major contract, and now they're struggling just to get that. Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley and Tony Pollard. And I get their frustration. I really do. But I also don't blame the organizations for not paying them. Saquon Barkley agreed to a 1-year, $11 million contract to basically avoid the franchise tag, so he ends his holdout. He's going to be with the New York Giants in the long run. First of all, it's good for the Giants because now, again, if they weren't going to have Saquon this year, forget the Giants in the playoffs, even in the week NFC. Even despite adding Darren Waller, in large part because he can't stay healthy, and my man out of Tennessee, Jalen Hyatt, who's going to do some solid things for him this year. They have to play a much tougher schedule. There's 2 teams in their division clearly better than them, Philadelphia and Dallas. I think Chicago, I'm iffy on Justin Fields, but I'm thinking Chicago is going to sneak in. Seattle got better on defense and on offense in the draft. It's going to be. It was tough sledding for the Giants to get in last year. This year it's going to be even tougher. So they had to have Saquon. I want to give Saquon a lot of credit here because he could have made the stand and say, you know what? Until I get the big contract, which he wouldn't be eligible for until next offseason, I'm not going to play at all. That would have been the absolute worst move for him. This is the absolute best. You're not playing the franchise tag, and you're playing on the 1-year deal. I think the $11 million, I'm 99% sure is completely guaranteed. I'm pretty sure it is. Excuse me. Remember what happened with Le'Veon Bell in 2017? 2018, rather. You got franchise tagged in 17, I think it was. Played that season, played great, had another all-pro season. 2018 gets franchise tagged again, so you know what? I'm not coming to camp. Not only am I not coming to camp, I'm not playing all season long. If you're going to franchise tag me, he ends up getting a contract far less in value with the New York Jets than what he would have gotten in Pittsburgh, and he was never the same player. Like, taking a year off is especially for a running back, is devastating to guys' careers. So I give Saquon Barkley a lot of credit. Josh Jacobs is still holding out. Does he agree to a deal similar to what Saquon Barkley has gotten? Tony Pollard is in camp with Dallas. That's a different situation. Again, Tony Pollard is a very good running back. He's not on the level of Josh Jacobs, who led the league in rushing, and Saquon, who basically was the Giants' offense last year. So he's not quite in that level yet. But I give Saquon a lot of credit in that he didn't stand on his morals. He didn't listen. There's certain situations where you should hold out. I think Lamar Jackson is chief among them. It's like, guys, quarterback is the most important position. I've improved drastically as a passer. You literally can't win or even function offensively without me. Why the heck won't you pay me? And finally, they caved and they paid him. It's about time they should. He's freaking Lamar Jackson. What are we talking about? For running backs, it's different. So Saquon Barkley's in for at least this year with the New York Giants. We'll see what happens next offseason. My guess, and it sucks for Saquon, it's probably another franchise tag for him. We'll see. But I don't know. I don't know if I'm buying if I'm buying like this is the turning point for running backs. My man John Rivera is in the comments from the Fan Perspective podcast. What's up, John? Johnny says Barkley had to do what's best for him. He had to. Like there's I've seen folks on social media saying, hey, he didn't take one for the team of running backs. Listen, I can look out for my team. I can look out for guys at my position. I got to look out for myself first. And I'm not going to cost myself A, money, and B, potentially my career. Because that's what happened with Le'Veon Bell. He had a pretty solid offer from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Didn't take it. Didn't play the 2018 season. Got a deal for the Jets that was way less in value than would have gotten in Pittsburgh. And Le'Veon Bell's out of the league now. In 2019, he wasn't even close to the same player. I know he had a cup of coffee in Kansas City, and that was pretty much it. I know he's talked about, I think, being in celebrity boxing matches. Like that's pretty much where we're at. By the way, real quick, a little update. Okay, yeah, LeBron is back in the gym working out. So obviously that's good news because, again, we got the news today that Bronny was discharged, which is awesome. Very, very scary situation on Tuesday. But Bron's back in the lab. He's back working out. So that's good news. Obviously, he feels that it is okay for him to go back, considering what all happened with his son. So, given what happened on Monday with Bronny, seemed like it's kind of the best case scenario to this point. He's discharged. He's improving physically. We hope he continues to do that. He's able to get back to full health. Absolutely wishing the very best for him. And John Rivera as well. Prayers up for Burrow. We got the best case scenario with Joe Burrow. That is a calf strain. Zach Taylor. I think it was Zach Taylor. No, it was Diana Rossini who announced about 30 minutes ago. I think, yeah, about a half hour ago that it's just a calf strain. And by the way, Adam Schefter just tweeted this. He said Joe Burrow carted off today with a strained calf. Jalen Ramsey carted off today with a knee injury that will require surgery and sideline him for the start of the season. And Schefter said he got a text today from a head coach saying, quote, I hate the first 2 weeks of training camp. They need to restructure the off season. And that's a bigger conversation for a different day. Okay. Real quick, another update about Jalen Ramsey. He just tweeted this. That end of season push going to be legendary. So that kind of seems to imply that he's going to be gone quite a while. He's going to be gone a few months. Okay. So this isn't just a thing where he's going to miss like the first month of the season. Like he's probably not back till December. So that's definitely a big loss for Miami. Again, I don't want to be too brutal on Ramsey because I hate that he got injured. I hate when anybody gets injured. But I've been in the mindset that over the last year and a half or so, Jalen Ramsey hasn't been even close to the same corner that he was at his peak in Jacksonville. But he's still a very good corner, and Miami's definitely going to miss him. No question about it. Like that was really their big offseason acquisition. Not to mention they added I'm forgetting the coach's name now. Used to coach the Broncos. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name. The defense coordinator for the Jets. I'm sorry for the Dolphins. I'm blanking on his name. John, somebody help me out in the comments. John just says I hate training camp. Yeah, it's rough. Well, it seems like, and it does seem like when the training camp injuries that do happen seem to happen at the very start of it. So that just sucks. But I'm trying so hard to remember the guy's name he used to coach the Broncos and now he's a defensive coordinator now for the Dolphins. I don't know. I'm blanking. Anyways, before we get out of here, new segment for Carving Up Live. Let's see. I see a comment. Patrick, thank you. Vic Fangio. I knew it started with a V, but I can't want to say Vance Joseph, who's another defensive coach who also coached the Broncos. I can't want to say Vance Joseph, but I knew it wasn't him. Vic Fangio. Thank you, Patrick. But he's a tremendous DC, but they're going to miss Jalen Ramsey. Okay, though. New segment for Carving It Up Live that we're debuting today. So I have been part of what I love doing with the show. There's a lot of things I love doing with the show. It's interacting like we just did there with the comments. It's bringing a new perspective that maybe you've never thought about before regarding some of the biggest stories in the world of sports. But one of my favorite things, and it's a word that I use a lot on the show, is context. And off of that, and again, I like to bring context to stories which sometimes lack them. New announcement. Every Thursday, or at least every middle of the week show, we are going to be doing a segment on Carving Up Live called Carving Up the Context. So let's go ahead and play the music right now and go and get started in the segment, because I got a lot to say. I got some context to carve out right now. So I saw a post on Instagram from, I think it was Hoops Nation that posted this. It really angered me. I didn't like it. And it was talking about how, hey, we say Anthony Davis is made of glass and he can't stay healthy, and that we're pushing this false narrative about Anthony Davis and how we don't give the same energy to other stars that we give to one AD, who I have religiously on this show called Coin Flip Davis, because that's what he is. He's great one game, terrible the next. It's heads or tails, 50-50. But here's the little numbers they gave. Hoops Nation talking about since 2016. Here's the graphic. Read off of the podcast audience. Kevin Durant has played 345 games. My man Steph Curry has played 387 games. Anthony Davis has played 400. So just off of that, you would assume. And by the way, their minutes per game are almost identical. It's like just literally 1 minute difference. So just by that, you're like, oh, Anthony Davis is more physically reliable than Steph and KD. There's one slight, well, just a couple slight little problems that we're going to carve up some context out of here. Kevin Durant missed an entire season. Because of an injury that happened at the end of the 2019 finals. Ruptured his Achilles, missed the entire 2019-20 season. So that's 70-plus games right there. Steph Curry missed essentially the entire season that year, all but 5 games, because he broke his hand in the 4th game of the season, came back for 1 game in March, then COVID hit, and that was Steph Curry's season, and the Warriors obviously were horrible, weren't good enough to make the bubble. So he misses 5 of 70 plus. Again, put the number back up. That simple math probably would have been a little bit more than Anthony Davis. Meanwhile, AD is they call Anthony Davis half man, half a season, which is it's a little harsh, but it's also got quite a bit of truth in it. Since 2016, let's look at Anthony Davis's games played per season. So 2016-2017, Anthony Davis plays 75 games. 2017-2018 plays 75 games. 2018-2019 plays 56. Now, in fairness to AD, a lot of that was because he missed a lot of games because he wanted to trade out of New Orleans to the Lakers, which he ultimately got in the 2019-20 season, in which he played 62 of 72. That's finally missed 10 games, and then the injuries started to come. He played 36 of 72 games in the 2020 through 21 season. He played 40 games in an 82-game schedule in the 2021 through 22 season, and he played 56 games last year. So that would do the math in my head. That's a little less than KD and Steph. No, I know for Steph, I'm almost certain with KD. So context, and when you throw these type of numbers out, would be appreciated next time. Hoops Nation, by the way, who does a great job on Instagram. Hoops Nation put out some great content on Instagram and on social media. Great basketball content. But when you're going to put that stuff out there and say, hey, the media and these fans out there, these social media trolls are just, they don't give these Steph and Katie. By the way, last thing, and this is somewhat important. Katie and Steph are 5 years older than AD. I would think they'd have injuries. I would think that Steph being 6'3" would go through injuries. And he does it to the level that Anthony Davis does at 6'11". Basically 7 feet tall. And KD is as slim as any player, certainly any superstar, that we've seen in the history of the game. Yeah, he's going to have injuries. Newsflash. So, throw this out there, guys. Maybe, just maybe, had Steph and KD not missed the entire 2019-20 season, it's entirely possible they would have played more games than Coin Flip Davis. And that's who he is. He's great one game. He's horrendous the next. Carving up the context. First edition. We're going to be doing it every week from now on. I just saw that and I was like, ooh, it bothered me. It bothered me. I have a feeling, by the way, before we get out of here, that I'm going to be doing a lot of carving up. Listen, I'm a Steelers fan. Announced it on Monday. Steelers through and through. At least newly. I'm still going to be supporting Dak Prescott, though. I have a feeling I'm going to be doing some Dak Prescott segments. I might have as well have done carving up the context segments with Dak and people to talk about all the interception numbers. It's like, yeah, it's because half of those went through receivers' hands. You know, he's got bad luck on some of those picks. So, I have a feeling those are coming down the pipeline. Real quick, last update on Bronny James before we get out of here. This is from Shams. He says, exact timing of when Bronny James was discharged from Cedars-Sinai Medical Center late Tuesday night per family spokesperson, so less than 48 hours spent in the hospital. Remarkable. Yeah, cardiac arrest spending less than 48 hours, but, you know, listen, Bronny's young, Bronny's healthy, so, you know, you certainly think that would play a factor quite a bit. So, yeah, that's like I said, given what happened to Bronny on Monday morning, this is the absolute best case news that we could have hoped for. So, glad that he's home. Hope he continues to recover. Continue to pray for him, his family, and I wish him the very best. Hope he can get back to full strength sooner rather than later. But carving up the context. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I'll put it on social media. We'll do this every week. All right, that's all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate you for stopping by. Be sure to catch Carving Up Live tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. And please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that, oh wait, no, right over there. Hit that big red subscribe button. It helps the channel grow exponentially. And be sure to like, share, comment as well. And be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere you get your favorite podcast, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, any and everywhere you get your favorite podcast, where you can find the Grid Network. We have some incredible content creators, so please check us all out. And, of course, you can check Carving It Up out there as well. And please subscribe to the Carving It Up YouTube channel and follow me on my social media platforms down below. Have a great evening, everybody. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Listen, there's been so much happening in the world of sports. I could have done a 2.5-hour show today, but I'm like, why did I do that when I have a show tomorrow? So I'm going to do a show tomorrow. A lot of topics to talk about in training camp, in other sports. So looking forward to that. But have a great evening, everybody. Please continue to stay safe. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please, I beg of you, contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence here in America. We have got to stop this problem. Have a great evening, y'all. Stay safe out there. God bless you all. Peace out. Carving up the context. It just sounds right. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.